Stand by, ladies and gentlemen. Bishop!
Hey, we did it.
Oh my goodness, we did it.
Boomers can do it. Boomers can do it. Boomers can do it. Boomers can do it.
You're making the boomers look real good tonight.
I'm trying to keep up with you guys. I tell you, you give me a run for my money.
Bishop, I have done so many of these now over the last few days, but I got to admit, I'm shaking. I'm so nervous right now.
Oh, come on, please stop.
No, I'm dead. You are my hero. I've been listening to you since, I've told you this before, since I was 12 years old. I started with Silence of the Lambs, and I listened to everything you put out, your rhythm, your cadence, your vocabulary, your perspective shaped. Man, I wish my dad was alive. He'd tell you, I wore cassettes out listening to you.
Wow. Well, I still remember you preaching in Sydney, word for word, about the pillows that Jesus slept on.
Yes, sir.
I might have borrowed a little bit of that too, by the way.
Bishop, there ain't never gonna be a day in this world you need to borrow anything from me. I say that. That's for sure. You know what's funny about that story, Bishop, is that I was during that sermon, in the middle of the sermon, we did a praise break, and I had Joel Houston and the crew doing a worship. And so you and the first lady stood up, and I was watching you, and you were about to leave because you thought it was over.
Right.
And I remember in the back of my mind thinking to myself, oh no, he's going to leave, and I'm only halfway through. But then you sat back down, and we finished. It was great.
Oh, it was powerful. It was awesome. You were great at the leadership, too.
Thank you, sir. That means the world. How are you doing? How's the first lady? How's Dallas?
She's good. Dallas is on lockdown. It's doing okay, but it's on lockdown pretty tight. Never seen anything like it before.
And what can you give us? I know this is a loaded question and an unfair question at that, but what is your perspective? We're 2 weeks into what is absolutely unprecedented, uncharted territory. What's your perspective?
I think that our biggest defense is discipline, and I think that we're fighting an enemy that requires absolute discipline at a time that we don't have any.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, please.
If you look at the plagues in the Bible, they were stopped by repentance, and they were taken seriously, and there was great discipline. If you look at Jonah going to Nineveh, it was them taking him seriously that stopped the plague, and he was angry because God stopped the plague. The problem is there are no voices that we're taking seriously in the face of a crisis, that every day I'm sitting here hearing about somebody else who died that I knew.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So, that's really the way it is. And I think it depends on your circle, whether you hear it or not,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
If it's not in your circle, you just hear numbers, 700 souls, 759. But if you know 50 of them, it changes how you look at it. And they're not all old people. A lot of them are, but some of them are younger people. And so a lot of cities are being hard hit. I'm just concerned about it. I'm concerned about it. And yet I believe God. I think God is up to something.
Yes, sir.
I think that he has sent this, allowed, I won't say that he sent it, but he allowed this virus to come totally tear down everything that we had going, make us come to our knees, make us come to a place of innovation and creativity, make us rethink the models that we had in place as a nation, as a world.
Wow.
As a world. And then as individuals. Whenever you see that kind of a radical disheaval of everything, it shakes you to your core. That's the bad part. The good part is, once you're shaken to your core, you're ready to build something new, something fresh. I don't want to go back to what we had before. I want to do something better than what we did before.
Wow.
Yeah.
Can I ask you, Bishop, why do you think, speaking of my generation, younger, why do you think we're not taking voices seriously? What is it in the makeup or the landscape of the culture? Why are we not taking voices seriously?
That's very normal. When we were
Okay.
your age, we didn't either. You know, you don't have anything to compare it to. When I was your age, I was driving down Interstate 64 at 135 miles an hour in a Trans Am with my brother driving a Corvette, and we were laughing our heads off and blow. You know, you just I never thought it possible that I could hit the curve and go over the cliff. There was a big, huge cliff, and it never crossed my mind because none of my friends were dying, and
Whoa.
none of my parents weren't dead. Until death comes close, it's not real.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's the
so
truth.
I think that's normal. I don't think that there's something uh, mechanically wrong with the younger generation. I don't see millennials anyway as children. I see millennials as adults. They now have children that are in their
Yeah.
20s.
Yeah.
So I don't see them as children. I see them as adults, and their hands are full. You know, they're trying to make a living, and they're trying to be creative, and they're trying to grow up. And growing up takes a lifetime.
Yes, sir. That's what my wife
Growing
keeps
up.
telling me.
Well, trust me, I got gray hair and I'm still working on it. Growing up takes a lifetime, and I'm glad it does because you don't. I always say that David was a kid and a king. He was a kid when he killed Goliath, and he was a kid when he was anointed to be king. So he had a king's anointing, but he had a kid's experience,
Whoa.
and throughout his life he vacillates between kid and king. And I'm not sure that if you totally kill the kid, that you won't damage the king, but you want to diminish the kid to the point that the king can rule and the kid is subservient.
How do
Because
you do that?
being a kid is what makes you creative. It's what makes you resourceful. It's what makes you resilient. It's what makes you get up out of the bed every morning and keep on fighting. So you don't want to kill that. You just don't want to be so cavalier that you disregard warning. And the other thing, I'm just going to be serious for a minute longer.
I love this.
The church always teaches us against fear because the Bible said God has not given us a spirit of fear, and He did say that. He has not given us a spirit of fear, but He did give us fear. Fear
Wow.
is a great gift from God.
Wow.
If you're in the jungle and you hear a rattlesnake, fear is a great gift. If you hear a train coming and you're driving a car, fear is a great gift. Fear is not always a bad thing. It's just that you don't want the spirit of fear.
Oof.
Okay. Fear is a good thing because it releases energy, and it ignites your fight or flight mechanisms. It empowers your body to move and to function a certain way. And so I think that the church has been so busy comforting its members that we have lulled them to sleep, and the sensitivity to a certain. See, we came up at a time that it was hellfire and brimstone over the pulpit. And they, when they got through preaching, I can't tell you how many times I got saved. I
For
got
real.
saved.
So Bishop
I got
Jakes got
saved
saved multiple times.
multiple times, multiple times. I walked down in a Billy Graham crusade. I got saved, put my hand on the TV set with Jimmy Swaggart.
Whoa.
I got saved in the little Baptist church I grew up in. I got saved over and over again, trying to be sure, that it takes. I wasn't sure it took, So I had to keep applying until I got about 16 or 17, and then I had an experience with God that I knew took, and that changed my life.
So we've learned today, just right here on Hold the Phone, that Billy Graham and Jimmy Swaggart led you to Jesus, and did a bunch of other people. And
Yeah,
we've
and
learned
everybody who's on TV.
that's amazing because everybody can take credit now.
Yeah, everybody.
Everybody.
Or deniability. Maybe it gives them deniability. It didn't quite take,
Bishop, I can't get over this image of you in a Trans Am. Like you're just cruising in a Trans Am. That was your car.
My church had a 1979 silver anniversary Trans Am redone and given to me on my anniversary as a gift because that was the car I was driving when I met my wife. That was the car we drove off from our wedding. I loved that car. It's unbelievable. They had
So
it
you have a
reconditioned.
Trans Am right now?
I have a Trans Am right now. Yeah, I have a night that looks just like the Trans Am I had 38 years ago.
Do you ever do you get it and just cruise around?
Every now and then, when I can get it to work right, I actually do get it. You know, it looks better than the engine is, but it's just a memory, a moment. Life is all life is memories and moments.
Wow,
It's not days, weeks, or months. It's memories and moments.
that's it.
And yeah, that's all it is. I don't remember every week or every month of 62 years. The only thing I remember are the moments and the memories. And so whenever you can, have a moment, make a memory, because that's life.
It's so funny you say that, Bishop, because my daughter just had her 11-year-old birthday yesterday, and we laughed. We went around the circle. There's 10 of us here in the house, and just said all the things we love about her. But she admitted, she goes, "I probably never forget this birthday, Daddy. Like, as much as the tragedy and the pandemic and the difficulty, it's like we made a memory, and there's
Yes.
value there."
You know something, let me tell you something. Nothing that I worked like a dog. I worked a job and preached. I worked overtime to buy my kids stuff that I never had.
Wow.
I have 5 children.
Yes,
I
sir.
used to work for Union Carbide. I bought pianos and bicycles and just everything I could on the budget that I had to try to make them happy. They don't remember any of it. I swear not. You would think now that they're all grown, they'd sit around the table and talk about the piano, and we put a big bow on it and they hid it from everybody. I mean, the kid cried when I gave it to him. He literally cried. It never comes up now at all. What they remember are my hands stuck over in cake flour, cooking at Christmas time, or teaching them to drive a car, or helping them tie a bow tie. They remember the cheap stuff. So my advice to all the young people who are watching right now, you can save all kind of money. Put away all those name brand clothes you got on them little babies. They're not going to remember none of it. And give them a hug. You know, eat ice cream and get ice cream all over their face and stuff. That's what they remember. And that's what they love you for. They don't remember all the stuff you're trying to give them that you feel is exceptional.
Well, that's encouraging to me. That's for sure. I'm gonna go tell Chal I'm done spending money on my kids. I'm done. Bishop said we don't have to.
I'm going to get hate mail from little kids all over the world.
That's
You're ruining our Christmas. That's
Bishop,
crazy.
I tell you what I do remember. I remember growing up, you may not know this, but my 16th birthday, I asked to go to the Potter's house, and you had just started the Potter's house. And I sat in the very back row. That's all I wanted for my 16th birthday. And I will never forget. I know it's not about this. There's so much going on in the world. But your suits, the suits you were, I would tune into the Potter's Touch just to see the suit you were wearing. And that, I'm going to tell the truth and shame the devil. That is a fact. And I was like, man, someday I'm going to get.
Are you serious?
That's a fact.
Well, let me give you the background story on that, okay?
Okay,
let me give you the background story. First of all, I own my own clothing line. And I own my own clothing line, and I have all my suits custom made, and I have clients all over the place, and I do custom suits. So if you ever get in the mood for one, I can really seriously hook you up.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah. I just turned it into a business because I've always liked fashion. But the reason I do is because when my wife was dating me, they critically called me One Suit Jakes, and made fun of me the fact that I only had one suit. And when we got married, we had such a tough time that we used to put it in the washing machine until all the lining was washed out of it because we couldn't send it to the cleaners. And I think I'm still trying to get revenge. I think I'm still trying to get revenge. I'm trying to get back all of those times that I didn't, that they laughed at me, that I had to button up my coat because my lining was hanging out. I have had the most amazing, interesting, exciting, dramatic, complex, complicated life imaginable. From nuts to bolts, from sorrow to triumph to joy to pageantry to pain. I have had the most amazing, incredible life. And I say that not because of the high points that people would think.
Wow.
But the little behind the scene moments that they didn't even get to see. I got to travel the world. I got to meet the most amazing people. And I'm going to tell you something. You're a part of the story. You are the only person, well, one of two people that put me up in front of a room full of little kids.
That's right.
Little bitty kids, and told me to preach. And I looked at that crowd of them little kids because that is not my gift or ministry. But it worked. It worked.
Bishop, I got to jump in and tell the story. Okay, so I'm a youth pastor in Seattle, Washington for my dad. I go into my dad's office. I said, Dad, I got one preacher I want to invite. He goes, oh, dear Jesus. I said, Dad, I'm going to invite Bishop Jakes. He goes, son, well, as your faith, so be it unto you. So we sent off the invitation, and I got a text, or I should say a voicemail from your office that you were thinking about it. I started sweating the moment I heard. I was like, wait, he's really considering this?
Yeah.
And I will never forget that night. Years ago now, Bishop was preaching on David and Goliath. And we got to the point where David had picked up his sling and started getting rock ready. And that was the end of the service, Bishop. We started hugging, crying. I can count on one hand how many times I felt Jesus like I did that night in that room. I held my dad. I held my wife. We prayed. We met Jesus that night. Woo.
Yeah, it was powerful. I remember that it was real powerful. But I also remember when I walked in the room, I thought, oh my gosh. I wasn't like a little kid when I was a little kid. I've always been very precocious. So I walked in there and I looked at all of those little kids and I thought, I wonder how this is going to work. But you know, to your credit, this is something you have to remember. You can do no more planting than your predecessor has done plowing.
Wow.
And the ground was right.
Yes,
they
sir.
were listening. They were attentive. That's unusual in kids that young.
Wow.
So you must have done something right that put me in an atmosphere, because for me, I bake a lot. Everybody who follows me on Instagram knows I bake a lot. You can't put a great cake in a coal oven.
Woo!
Okay? The atmosphere is what makes the cake rise.
Oh, my goodness.
You see, they say the leavening makes the cake rise. That's not really true. You can put the leavening in it all you want to, but if you don't put it in the right atmosphere, it won't rise. So the atmosphere is critical to creating an atmosphere that is conducive for glory. And most churches don't really create an atmosphere for glory. They create an atmosphere for excitement and for entertainment. But there is a big difference between excitement and glory.
Wow. And how would you define the differences?
Excitement gets everybody revved up like they're at a football game and everybody's cheering, everybody's kicking, and they're doing the thing that they to do. Glory changes you forever. Glory changes you forever. And my hope and my prayer is that we don't lose sight of what the glory is. Even if we lose the glory, if we don't lose sight of what it is, we will know it when it returns.
Ooh.
See, Anna had lost the glory. Simeon had lost the glory. They had been serving in the temple where there was nothing behind the veil. The Ark of the Covenant had been gone for years. But they had never lost sight of what the glory was. So when Mary comes in holding this 8-day-old baby, and asked him to circumcise the baby. The first drop of Jesus' blood was not shed on the cross. It was shed in the temple when they circumcised him. And Anna, when she held him, she knew he was glory. We beheld the wonder of his glory.
Jesus.
You see what I'm saying? And that's, I'm not worried about will the glory come. I'm worried about us getting to the point that we no longer notice its absence. And you have to have been raised in a way that you were raised, because you have the young, youthful, millennial vibe going, but you have deep roots that run down into generational soil that has served you well.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And a tree is no more than its roots. Yeah, a tree is no more than its roots. So I'll stop being serious.
No, Bishop. I remember that night because I remember thinking in my probably 21, 22, 23-year-old head, Bishop didn't finish the sermon. So later that night we were having dinner briefly, and I didn't want to inundate you, but I was like, I gotta ask. I said, Bishop, why didn't you finish your sermon? And you said something I'll never forget. You said, "Oh, Judah, you preach until the presence is evident and tangible, and then you stop."
That's right.
Woo!
What's funny is I was getting ready to say the same thing today. So 20-some years later, I still believe the same way. The object of the sermon is not the sermon, but to bring them into the presence. Once you have brought them into the presence, the sermon is over. Who cares what else you were going to say? Once you have brought them to the King, then the whole dialogue is over, because he doesn't need our help. He really doesn't need our help. My goal in life is to bring them into the glory if I can, and if I can't, I'm gonna have a bad night that night, because then I go home and I wrestle with it because I'm addicted to it. I come from that era where you didn't have church if there wasn't any glory, and you can't shoot me out of a cannon and blow balloons up in my face and all that kind of stuff and make me think that's church. That's cute. We can do that. But when I get ready to really have that gully washing, thirst quenching, mind renewing encounter with God, nothing else will do.
Nothing.
Yeah. Nothing else will do. And once I get that, it's everything. Before I preach, I don't have music.
You froze, Bishop. Are you there?
Somebody called me. I don't listen at music. I don't listen at preachers, and I don't have conversation before I preach. The car is quiet because I preach out of my head, and my head has to be clear. And the preaching doesn't start when I grab the mic.
Wow.
It's always going. It's always in there. Like now, it's in there now.
Yes,
it's in there now, And I listen. I marveled at you when you came to the leadership conference. What a powerful manifestation of God you left in the room with people laying on their face before God. And to me, that's what's wonderful. Nothing else is wonderful. Private jets, success, fame, face all over magazines, all that's cute. That's nice. But you can get in hip hop and do that. You can do that anywhere. Yes. The only thing that matters is that you can bring down the glory.
Yeah.
And if you can't bring down the glory, then don't call yourself a preacher.
Woo!
Call yourself an entertainer or something, or a motivational speaker or hip hop. And I'm not saying that we need it all the time. Not every service is going to have that depth to it, because an encounter with God lasts a while. You can walk in that glory for a while. You know what I mean? You don't need that every night. That's too much every night. The priest didn't dwell in the holies of holies.
Ooh.
They visited it, but they didn't dwell there.
Wow.
They didn't go in there with this shoe bread and hang out and sit around and play marbles in the holies of holies. It was too dense for that.
Dense.
Yeah, it
Wow.
was
Wow.
dense. It was dense. So the holies of holies is a place you visit, but you're never far from it. Even though it's on the other side of the veil, you never get far from the glory. And there's something. There has to be something. I get excited when I see young men. I'm a big cheerleader for the young people
Yes, you are.
because, and you know I am. I started preaching when I was 19. I started pastoring when I was 22. I got married when I was 24. I was on national TV when I was 30. Okay. So why would I get to this age and be against young people?
Wow. Yeah.
Dr. King died before he was 40. Jesus finished at 33. Most of the great leaders that changed our world in any kind of way did it in their youth.
Wow.
And if you maximize your youth properly, you will feed your old man. Because Jacob said to his sons around the bed, Benjamin shall raven as a wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and in the evening he shall divide the spoils. So if you devour the prey in the morning, you can divide the spoils in the evening.
I don't know what to do right now. I don't know if to cry. I don't know. I feel like I'm shaking, but you are speaking my language. Can I ask you a question about the glory? When those moments happen where you, and I call it the kiss of God, when at the end of the gathering, typically the way I was raised, I would sense Jesus. You know, I felt him the other day on Sunday, or I should say Wednesday. I did a 19-minute sermon, but at the end I was like, ooh, I feel him in the room. I feel him in the studio. But when that doesn't happen, Bishop, what is your course of action? What goes through your mind when you're on your way home going, that was different?
I, I, I don't, well, first of all, I want to make sure it's not me. I don't believe in letting the crowd rule me.
Wow.
One of the big mistakes that preachers make, I'm getting ready to write this book, incidentally, called Don't Drop the Mic.
Oh,
And yeah, and this makes me think of it because I'm writing to you about how I did what I did, you know, and what I learned about preaching and what I learned about speaking and how powerful the art of speaking is. You don't preach to the crowd and let the word watch. You're preaching with the word and let the crowd watch. Okay. So if I get in my zone with that text, all of y'all can walk out the building. It wouldn't make any difference to me because I am so far down into that text. I love the text, not the crowd. I love the text. I let the crowd watch. But what I'm doing to that text. You know,
Wow.
I'm into. That's why I'm in my head with the text. The intimacy that explodes on the stage begins long before I get to the auditorium. And generally, I know when it's a bell ringer because it's a bell ringer down inside of me.
Whoa.
First, yeah. And then I have this heavy weighted pregnant responsibility to get birth this thing in front of you.
Wow.
Yeah. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, I heard one leader say you can't have Christmas every night for dinner. You know, you can't have Christmas every with your kids. Do you subscribe to, there are some sermons that don't feel like the bring down the house, but you are like, I'm going to do this.
They don't have to bring down the house, but they ought to all move the dial.
Yes.
Yeah. They ought to see, you're not a leader if nothing moves. You see,
yes, sir.
If you don't see quantifiable change, then you're not leading your part.
Wow.
You can sit in the car and have the keys and turn the car on and not lead because you're parked. So leadership is determined not by titles, not by where you sit in church, not by what you have on. Leadership is determined by how much quantifiable change your presence made in that room. And and sometimes it's a big change. It's a massive, obvious emotional change. Sometimes it's a little change. And don't be deceived, because sometimes the services that make the most noise have the least impact. Like,
Whoa.
yeah, because my church is at its best when it's quiet. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. When they get really quiet, oh, yeah, that I have nailed something against the wall, because we come from this predominantly black churches come from this call and response thing, where you get to preaching and they're gonna talk back to you. You know, come on up with it. Yeah, hey, that's what I'm talking about. And right there, you know, they're gonna talk to you. Okay. When you hit something so hard that they just stop and stare, you're in that space, that sacred space that God allows you to go in. He's the surgeon, but you're the anesthesiologist.
Oh man.
And you get to be in the room where the surgery is, and God allows you to be in that space. But the actual operation is His, because you do realize that everybody in the room heard the same sermon, but they didn't get the same message. It depends on where you are in your life, what you heard out of what I said. Even with the people listening at us now,
Right.
depending on where they are in their life, that determines what they hear.
Yes,
Your
sir.
ability to hear is based on your POV, your point of view. When I got on the phone with you, the daddy got on the phone, the son got on the phone, the comic got on the phone, the preacher got on the phone, the business person got on the phone, the film producer got on. You bring everything with you into a moment. They all sit down there with you. Not only that, my mother is sitting here, my grandfather is sitting here, and my great grandmother is sitting here. All of them are sitting in this chair with me, like your father sitting in that chair with you.
Yes, sir.
You know, sitting right there with you. Will never ever leave you. Will never go away from you. He will always be inside of you. He will always be
Thank you for
inside of
saying
you.
that. I believe it.
Yeah, I knew him and I loved him, and as a father, never think that he ever leaves you, because we are the sum total of everybody who breathed on us.
Jesus.
Yeah, and he will always be in you, no matter where you go. Death is not as strong as love.
Yes, sir. I believe that and I receive that.
Yeah, love. My mother's sitting right in this chair with me. My father too. My grandmothers, both my grandmothers, my great grandmother, all of them sitting up there or sitting in this chair with me. You don't get to where you are by yourself.
No, sir.
Yeah, yeah. You don't get to where you are by yourself. And though there is an ache in your heart and a void that will always be there and a longing, and that is almost a tribute, because that ache only dignifies the fact of its value.
Yeah.
Okay, its value. If it wasn't valuable, you wouldn't miss it. Something valuable, you miss it. But in the midst of the ache and that pain, as you go along, you will discover his voice inside of you, his character coming out of you. You'll laugh one day and say, "Dang, I sound just like my father." Or you'll be riding in the car and you'll hear him respond to something, you know, like he's right there with you.
I was just gonna ask you if that happens to you. I feel like I heard him, like I hear him make a statement sometimes. Like that statement just hit me in my head, and I could hear his tone. You know?
Yes. Oh, my son. I told my son, "You'll never get away from me. you'll you'll be an old man on a walker, and I'll still be in your head."
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
I left too much in you that they could never kill,
Never.
never take it away. And That's the privilege that you have. I was talking to someone today. I'll say this, shut up. A young friend of mine just lost her mother to the virus. And her mother is one of the most dignified, classy ladies I've ever met. Just her husband is a doctor and taught at UCLA and da 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 da. And she's aching now. She couldn't even hold her mother's hand, and she was dying. She couldn't even get in the room with her. You know, she couldn't be with her. And she just died yesterday morning.
Jesus.
And I told her, your pain is a privilege that some people never get to have because they never got to love somebody enough to miss them that bad.
Wow.
Yeah. You can't hurt bad if you don't love much.
Wow.
And some people's mama put them in a trash can and they were found in a dumpster. And some people's mama was strung out on drugs and sold them for a little bag of crack. You had something to lose. That's a privilege. That's an absolute privilege. Some people can't. Their father wasn't speaking to them. They weren't speaking to their father. You got to be loved. You got to be touched. You got to be held. You got to be talked to. You got to be developed. And even though you ache and you might sometimes feel sorry for yourself, always know how rich you are. Because that is a richness that a credit card could never pay for.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes, sir. And I heard you say one time, you know, our children and our grandchildren are proof that we were here. And I consider it a great privilege and an honor to be, and I'm going to start crying here in a second. I always cry when I'm around you. I tell myself I'm not going to do this, but I do it because it's the glory. But to think that I have the privilege of letting the world know that Wendell Smith was here, you know?
Yeah.
And that he was a good man, and that every sermon I preach or moment I spend with my family, yeah, it's just proof, you know, that he was here. And what an honor to be able to tell everybody I had a dad and he was a good man. So it's happening again. I told myself, Carl Lentz, I know you're out there. We can't help it. Every time we're around Bishop Jakes, we cry. Here we go. This turned into a counseling session.
Your father was a great, classy, distinguished, artful, wise, compassionate, measured individual.
Thank you,
Very
sir.
measured individual.
He was.
Yes, he was. Absolutely. I remember him very well. Very measured individual. And he would, hear me when I tell you, he would be so proud of you.
Thank you, sir.
Oh my God. He would be so proud of you. As a father myself and a 62-year-old man, your father would be so proud of what you did with your life.
Thank you, sir.
He would be so absolutely awed by your version of him.
I tried to improve on you, Dad. I don't know if it's possible, but I'm trying.
Your version of him. Every son has a version of his father. That's why fatherhood is so important.
Oof.
It's so important. It's hard to make single mothers understand it, and sometimes they're not single mothers through any fault of their own. But the notion that I can be your mother and your father sounds good, but it's really not true.
Wow. Because
what a boy gets from his father, it's hard to replace.
Jesus.
It's hard to replace. It's discipline. It's structure. He's the measurement that you measure where you ought to be by that time.
Yeah.
You always compare yourself. Well, when Dad was that age, he was so and so and so. You know, he's the goalpost. And without that, what I say to single mothers is find a man he can look up to,
Oof.
because surrogate fathers count too.
Yes, sir.
And it doesn't have to be your husband. It can be your brother. It can be your father. It can be a neighbor down the street. But every boy needs to measure himself by something to figure out where he is, because here's the mystery. Here's the mystery. None of us can see ourselves.
Yeah.
We can see everybody else. We can see everything. We can never see us.
Wow.
We can never see us. And so even the most gifted of us often ache in places that nobody would ever touch, because they don't know that you can't see you. You walk off the stage and you can't see you. You can't see you. I can see everybody but me. I can see my life better now that I'm older, looking back at it. When I was doing Mega Fest and filling up stadiums and doing all of that stuff, I couldn't see it.
Wow.
I was so busy trying to manage it, scared to death I was going to wreck it, and didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have time to see it.
Right.
Now when I go back and look at it, I say, are you kidding me? Was it that many people that did it? You know, I enjoyed it. Like 20 minutes later, it's like somebody who laughs late at a joke. Everybody through laughing, and then 30 minutes later, somebody busts out and like, that's the way life is, because you cannot see yourself. Here's my thought. Surround yourself with people who are secure enough to reflect you and not compete with you.
Man. Can you say that one more time, Bishop?
Yeah. So surround yourself with people who are mature enough and secure enough to reflect you and not compete with you. Because most people who are around you want to compete with you. They want to be you. Okay.
Wow.
But a really good friend will help you to see you. Yeah.
Ooh, man.
Yeah. And you'll know they're really good when they're close enough to get in your butt about something. That's a real good friend, because you need that. You have to have somebody who can say, that was stupid.
Yes, sir.
You shouldn't have said that. That's not the way to handle that. Everybody, even at 62, I still need that. You have to have somebody, not somebody who appoints themselves, not somebody who elects you, not somebody who comes for you on Twitter.
Wow.
Somebody that you have a relationship with. See, David had a relationship with Nathan.
Wow.
Nathan wasn't some strange guy sitting up under a bridge tweeting to him. You know what I mean? You got it. That's an intimate spot to let somebody into your corrective space and your vulnerable space, and the fact that you cannot see yourself. And the reason I told you your father would be proud of you is because I'm a father, and I would want somebody to tell my son that. I would want desperately somebody to tell my son that. And I told you that because you can't see you.
Yeah.
You can't see you.
Yeah.
And it's obvious to everybody else, but what's obvious to everybody else evades you. And you go home and you feel like 2 cents, and you can't find anything that makes you feel valuable because you can't see you. And I think God does that to keep us humble.
Wow.
Remember that Jesus asked, who do men say that I am? And then he says, who do you say that I am? Okay. All to assess, how do I come across? How do I come across? He knew who he was. He knew
Right.
who he was. He knew who he was before he got here. But how do you perceive me? How did that come across you? Some say that are Elijah. Some say that are Jeremiah. Some say that, who do you say I am? Those of you that I invested the most in, Do you see me?
Wow.
Do you see me? And that's what you want to know about your inner circle. And your inner circle is not always your inner staff. Your inner circle is the people that you give the privilege to be in your space and face. And you want to know, do you see me?
Wow.
Could you tell I was mad when I was preaching? Could you tell I had that mic and I was choking that mic because I was like, could you tell that I almost lost it on stage? Could you tell when I broke when I was preaching? Could you tell can you tell I'm tired? Does anybody know I'm tired? Does anybody know I'm empty? You have to have somebody who knows you.
Yes, sir.
That's very, very good. So we're supposed to be laughing and having fun, and people are
No,
probably bored.
can I ask you, I have 3 more questions, Bishop, and
Okay.
I'm done, I promise.
Go ahead.
You need to go enjoy your evening with the First Lady.
I'm having a great time.
You said leadership is, if you don't take anybody anywhere, that's not leadership. Where are we going right now as the church? Where do you feel like we're going?
We're waiting for the baby's head to crown for this generation. There will emerge several voices that rise to such distinction that makes it safe for their fathers to die.
Wow.
We're waiting for Samuel to recognize who he is. We have not had the amount of Samuels that we should be for the world that we're living in now. I see them coming. I see the crowning of the head coming. I see big movements coming. But big movements plus deep roots. It's hard now. It's harder than it's ever been.
Yes, sir.
You're vulnerable all the time. You're accessible to everybody. Everybody's living in your pocket. Imagine that. The whole world is in your pocket. Yeah. Good, bad, and ugly. All 24/7. It's harder than it's ever been. It's harder to make any headway. And you're measured by stuff that doesn't matter. You're measured by how many followers you got, how many friends you got. How many, nobody's measuring you for glory. Nobody's measuring you for impact. They're measuring you for image.
Wow.
So the focus is on image. What I'm talking about is impact. My father told me, this is a bad example for a preacher debate, but my father was an athlete, and my father told me, he said, when you hit a guy, he said, never hit at him, hit through him.
Whoa.
He said, hit to go through him. He said, that way you'll have enough impact. Because if you aim to hit him in the face, that won't be enough. Aim to hit through his face and let his face shock you.
Wow.
So when you aim at something in life or in a text or in a building, aim to hit through it. It takes that much to get to it.
Wow, through it.
Yeah, to all the way. All the way through. Where if you miss, you'll fall.
Ooh.
Yeah. With everything you got, because there's a shift coming. It's already started. The body of Christ, I believe, is being resurrected. I believe it's coming up in power. But it's not always in the noisy little services where everybody's jumping around and hollering where the power is. It's over in little corners and crevices. It may be somebody whose name crawled across the screen and little hearts are going up in there. It may be in little odd places, some little yak somewhere who can't even dress or talk right, but there's something burning in his belly.
Oof.
There's something burning in his belly. If you got something burning in your belly, I don't care what else is wrong. I don't care what else is broken. Home is broken. Don't have any money. Don't know how to dress. Dropped out of school. All that. None of that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about, do you have something in your stomach that catches a fire? And that's what we need today.
Yes, sir.
That's what we need today. And I don't think it can come from us. I think that we can coach you. I think that we can coach you. I think we can do what I'm doing now. But it's your turn.
Wow.
And it would be wrong for us to take your turn.
God.
No good father competes with his son.
No, sir.
No, never do it. Never compete. Because if you do it, I'm up there too.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm up there too. And what we are needed for is what I'm doing right now. And see, your soul doesn't get that often.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah. And it's so needed. Because what I know about being you, see, I have been you. So what I know about it is it's so dadgum lonely.
Totally.
It is so absolutely lonely. And you got all these people hating on you, and everybody wanting to be you, and everybody either admiring you and idolizing you or trying to shoot you down and kill you or trying to replace you. You got all of that going on at the same time. And all the while, it is so absolutely lonely and scary with so much responsibility on somebody so fragile, and only you know how fragile that person is. And you wonder, God, are you tripping? Are you serious? When God called me, I said, are you serious? Are you serious? This is not going to work. Okay, this is a bad deal. This is not going to work. But it works because of him.
Yes, sir.
And every now and then, stop feeding long enough to eat.
Wow.
And you'll be happier. And it doesn't have to be a service. It can be a moment like this. But if you get a moment like this, you could run another year. But never stop getting. I used to go, and the only person I stay in their house is my spiritual father, other than my kids. My spiritual father, I go stay in his house and go in his kitchen and eat up his food and cook up his stuff and do whatever I want. I do leave the house a mess. He fusses about it all the time. He's 80. He's 83. But I always knew I needed somebody in my life that could do this. Wow. Without that, the cars, money, all of it doesn't mean anything.
Anything.
Everybody can get stuff. But to be grounded as a person, because if not, the gift to get bigger than the guy that's carrying it, and it'll crush you. You can build something that kills you.
Wow.
And the weight of it sitting on you all the time will kill you. And being married doesn't help it, because that's a different relationship, and you can't put that weight on her because she got the kids and she's got everything else to do. So you come to the garden alone.
Wow.
While the dew is still on the roses. And whatever you're worried about, you can't even say nothing about, because it's complicated and it's heavy and it's scary and it's frightening. And when men get scared, we get quiet.
Even I get quiet. It's hard to get me quiet.
Yeah, we all do.
We
I
are.
talk all the time, but I don't talk in the house like that. Yeah,
Right.
because you're off duty and you get to be somebody else, and get to be somebody else and enjoy being somebody else, and do whatever you want to do. But what we're talking about now, while I'm talking to you, I'm really talking to a whole generation.
I feel that.
Yeah, it's really fathering a nation. It's really telling you the real deal that you're going to be scared to death every day. And you got to feel the fear and do it anyway.
I promise.
You're going to feel like I'm not enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not adequate. I'm not enough this or enough that or the other. All of that God stirred into the recipe to keep you from arrogance.
Wow.
That's all in the soup, and it adds to the flavor of authenticity. Because if you don't have that, then you'd be obnoxious. You would be utterly obnoxious. You remember how he gave Paul the thorn in the flesh,
Yeah.
lest he be exalted above measure?
That's what it
I
says.
sent, I sent an enemy with a thorn in the flesh. Look at how committed God was to balance.
Wow.
So the greater you are on one hand, the more pain you have on the other.
Wow.
And the worst part about being you is that you can't tell anybody. You can't tell them when it hurts.
Yes, sir.
So the doctor is sticking you with a knife or cutting you with a needle or door. You can't scream. You can't scream, and that creates a lot of inner turmoil. I guess what I'm trying to say is all that's normal.
That's what I
All
need to hear. That's
yeah, all that's a part. All that's a part of being chosen.
mm,
The one thing that God made sure we got out of the Bible, although we never talk about it, the thing that He wanted us to get the most, we say the least about. We say a lot about success. We say nothing about suffering.
Jesus help us.
And the symbol of your faith is an execution chamber. The cross was not a place of endearment when
Is that better, guys? Is the volume, just checking on the volume, hoping the volume's back. Sorry, we got to keep redoing this. I'm going to send Bishop, oops. I'm going to send Bishop up a little. That should help. Oh, there he is. We're back. Bishop is coming any moment. Sorry, guys. Who hangs up on the bishop, right? Instagram. Instagram does. Bishop, are you there? The hour was probably, yeah, it's the hour, Instagram hour, guys. Sorry. Um, I want to be respectful of Bishop's time too. So I just got two more questions as we conclude. Let's see if Bishop is coming. Love all of you. Thanks for joining us. This is the bonus Hold the Phone, late night Hold the Phone. My goodness, this is incredible. Oh, Instagram's having problems. Oh, thank you, James. I appreciate that. Yeah, it looks like it. Looks like it is having. Sound is back. So let's see if we can. If not, we can always do part two with Bishop if he is willing. Bishop, we could always do part two tomorrow. I want to be respectful of your time too. Carrie, I cried too. Oh my word, did I cry? I could have ugly cried tonight. This is like a dream for me. Okay, let's see. See if we got Bishop this time. Bishop, I'm so sorry.
I had to figure out how I could hear you, but you couldn't hear me.
Who hangs up on the Bishop? Instagram.
Yeah. I thought I had died or something.
No, sir.
Okay. No, that's crazy.
Well,
I don't know what I was talking about. But
well,
who knows?
I definitely know what you were talking about because you were speaking to me and just the pain of leadership. And can I just say, on behalf of my generation, what has happened here tonight has been nothing short of prophetic, profound, historic for me. I want to respond by saying we're promising to stay at this, to build for the long haul, to continue in your footsteps as you continue to lead the way. I'm so grateful. But I am probably going to go upstairs in a few minutes here when we're done and lay on my floor and cry. Just for those who are wondering what you do after you interview Bishop Jakes, you go to your room and you cry. That's what I'm going to do. I mean it, Bishop. I'm not even joking. Ugly cry.
Ugly cry.
Can I ask you? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It was wonderful. I didn't know what it would be. This is the first time I've done this.
This is your first Instagram Live.
Yeah.
Yes! This is the best. Oh my goodness. I had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't even know how to get back on. I was looking at it and I was trying to read and I was getting ready to text you and say, "Can you hear me?" So this is the first time I did it, but it's cool. You know, I'm trying to keep up. Y'all are not leaving me. I want you to know that.
No, sir.
Yeah,
hey, it should be noted that Mr. Bieber, JB is on here, and he wanted to ask the Bishop. Mr. Bieber wants to know, does Bishop Jakes think he has the heart of David? That's what he asked.
I don't know. I like David. David's one of my favorite characters in the Bible. I might. David, there was, you know what I am like, that's like David. David was complicated. Ooh. And I'm definitely complicated.
You are?
Oh gosh, extremely. My wife tells me this every day, so I believe her. I never heard it till she told me, but after she told me, I think she's right. The reason I say David was complicated, this guy is passionate enough to not only make songs, he wrote songs, he wrote poetry, he made instruments. He created instruments and played music so well that it impacted spirits.
Whoa.
Okay. He was so innovative that he changed the system while Moses' tabernacle existed. David broke all of Moses' laws and found out that if he came in with worship, he wouldn't have to bring blood and the Ark of the Covenant would go with him.
Oh my.
Okay. So on one hand, you have this sensitive, compassionate, artsy, creative, intellectual who is prolific and profound and precise in his ability to linguistically describe the undescribable, infinite God himself. And on the other hand, David had a temper that was so fierce that he would go out to war and kill hundreds of Philistines and cut off their foreskins and bring them and lay them at the feet of the king. He was not to be fooled with. Wow. Okay, so when you start talking about the complexities of David, I think I'm complex like that. Where I'm afraid to say that I have the spirit of David is that David danced before the Lord in such a way that he won the heart of God and became the king because of praise. with no training and no background and no pedigree and wasn't in line for the throne. He wooed God. He dated him. He was after, when God said, I found a man after my heart, David wooed God with worship and praise. And that was, we know it was predestined. We know that he is the great great grandchild of Ruth, but he was Jesse's son, taking care of sheep a long ways from the position. You know how much stuff God had to move to make him king? It took years for David to become king. All kind of people had to die and move and switch, and Jonathan died, and Saul died, and all these people, Abner died, and Michal had to leave a man she was married to, and come. There's all kinds of stuff went on for David to get everything set up to be king over Israel. But God did it. And when God is for you, he will make it happen. I can say this to Justin. It was my heart that brought me here. It was not my head, and it was not my mouth. It was my heart that brought me here. I'm sure of that. I'm sure it was my heart that brought me here.
Wow.
If you get the letters and you get the suits and you get the mannerisms and you get everything else and you don't get the heart, then it's like a car without an engine. And what has to happen? Everybody wants to preach better, but if they would just love better, they would preach better.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I was going to say that'll preach, but that's counterproductive.
Yeah, if they would see themselves in every soul that stumbled to the altar, if they would preach like they were trying to pull their son up out of a pit, even though their son wasn't in the room, if they would bloody their hands snatching him out of the fire, they would do better.
And Bishop, I feel like watching you as a young man in my formative years, hopefully I'm still in formative years, but you came across, I read you like you were preaching like you were dying. You were preaching like you were bleeding. You were preaching like you were hemorrhaging. I preached my first week of meetings in Alaska when I was 16, and I dragged myself across the stage talking about Mephibosheth.
Oh, yeah.
Just like you.
He was my character.
Just like you.
Did you? Oh, you got to send me the video. Please send me the video.
No, Bishop, we destroyed that video. It's gone.
No, come on now. I preached about Mephibosheth because I was Mephibosheth.
Woo.
And then I got older and he was harder to preach because my little boy had gotten well.
What? Oh my goodness.
And he's harder to find now.
Wow.
When I was younger, I could touch him easier because I wasn't that far from him. Wow. But now at 62, the scar is there, but the skin is healed.
Wow.
And that's what I mean about bringing your whole life to the text. You can't preach about the man on the Jericho road like he's a stranger.
Oof.
You have to feel the Palestinian heat and the wind whipping across your face mixed with sand. And you have to feel the terror of the dark walking down the Jericho road. And you have to feel the assault of being attacked in the dark by yourself and stripped in front of strangers. And feel helpless and open and embarrassed and exposed and stabbed. And you have to lay there on the cold ground in the night in the desert where the temperature drops, only to hear the sound of your own blood oozing out of your side. And they're delirious and about to faint. You have to hear the footsteps of those who came to watch but wouldn't heal. Oh. And you have to take every person who ever watched you bleed and everything you ever felt about it, you have to bring that to that text. And you have to be out there, and you can't preach that text like you know how it's going to end. You have to preach that text fully aware of the fact that I may die out here tonight.
Wow.
And when that man comes with the beast and gets down so that you can get up, and he pours in the oil and the wine, you have to love him. And you have to hold on to that beast for dear life, pain and all. Because the further you got away from that spot, the more you knew you were going to make it. Can you feel that?
Yes, sir. How did you learn to do that? How did you learn to do that?
Get the book.
I will. As soon as you let me, I will.
Yeah, get the book.
You promise?
The hardest, this has been the most frightening thing I've ever tried to write. It is horrifying for me to try to explain something that's unexplainable. It's like asking your grandmother for her recipe, and she doesn't have one. And now she has to take the salt that's in her hand and measure it down into a teaspoon and say, it's a teaspoon and a half. That's what it's like for me, because preaching to me is so intimate.
Oof.
Oh, God, it's so intimate. It's between me and him. It's the way we dance. It's how we do it. It's how we do it. Ooh, God. I wouldn't be a gentleman if I told. I felt awkward. It's what we do. It's what we do.
Is it even a fair question to ask? Do you have a favorite sermon? And if you don't, what if you had to choose one last sermon you've already preached, but it's your last sermon and you got to preach it? Which one would it be?
The Spell is Broken.
Yes, sir. I know it well.
The Spell is Broken.
Wow, that was quick. Why is your answer so quick? I'm surprised to hear you say that so quickly.
Oh, I've contemplated it before. It would be between The Crippled Child that you're talking about with Mephibosheth and The Spell is Broken. But I'll tell you, I've had some new ones that really, those are old ones. One of the new ones I really liked a lot was I Didn't Know I Was Me.
Oh, I saw the title, Bishop. I haven't heard it yet, but I'm going to.
Yeah, I didn't know I was me. It deals with Gideon being down at the threshing floor in the wine press. He was threshing wheat in the wine press. Threshing wheat in the wine press, okay? And the angel came by and called him a mighty man of valor.
Whoa.
And he didn't know he was that. And when I saw that and I read that, what illuminated in my mind is, what is he doing threshing wheat in the wine press when he's a mighty man of valor? And then I realized he didn't know he was till the angel told him. And then I thought about myself and I thought, I didn't know I was me. I would have done things differently. I would have lived differently. I would have prepared differently. I would have avoided things I fell into if I would have known I was me. I didn't know I was me. Okay, so let's go deeper. So this leads me to when Kobe Bryant died, I thought, I wish he could see what his death did to the world. I wish he could see that he died and it stopped the press. They stopped bickering in Washington. They stopped arguing on the news. For 3 or 4 days, almost a week, everybody everywhere was talking about a basketball player.
Yes, sir.
He was a basketball player. And he shut down the planet. Everybody was talking about him. And I thought, I wonder, did he know he was him?
Wow.
If Dr. King came back today, I bet you he would be shocked. He wouldn't know that highways were named after him and schools were built in his honor and all these libraries and museums were. The point is, greatness evades the great.
Wow.
And everybody knows it but you. And most of the time, it's more post-mortem than it is in real-time speed.
And Bishop, what's your conclusion with that perspective in terms of what does that leave you at the conclusion of that investigation and study?
Well, it led me to follow God in spite of my opinion.
Ooh.
Yeah. To have the courage to leave the wheat in the wine press and climb out of it and put on a uniform and go down there with a sword in my hand and fight like hell with no training and no background and no past experience, do it anyway.
Wow.
Because that's exactly what Gideon did. He rose to power with no experience and no training and no mentor and no nothing. He just believed what was said.
Wow. So the summary, almost like what Paul said to Timothy, you therefore, my son, be strong in the grace that is in Christ Jesus. Like, be who you are.
Be who you are, not how you feel.
Woo!
It doesn't matter how you feel.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter how you feel. Your feelings are never going to line up with your calling. Wow. And if you're waiting for your feelings to validate your calling, you're never going to be there.
Never.
You have to have the courage, and I mean it takes courage, to walk up there with your sword in your hand and say, okay, let's get it on.
Yeah.
Let's get it on. And just see what happens. You have to go in there and become who he says. I don't mean that you don't train and you don't prepare and you don't study. I do all of that.
Yes.
I read everything I can read about everything. Politics, business, arts, entertainment, the Bible, history, everything I can get my hands on. I try real hard not to be stupid, though I still am. I try real hard not to be. That study is my praise. It's how I respect my call. It means I respect my call, my craft, and my audience. And let me touch on that since other people are listening.
Please.
If you don't prepare for your message with all that you got, you don't respect your call, you don't respect your craft, and you don't respect your audience.
Wow.
You assume that your audience is stupid. And that's a bad mistake, because you never know in any crowd who's sitting out there who's smarter than you. Woo. So you always bring your A game. I don't care if it's not but 7 of them there. Bring your A game, because one of them might be a maestro. See, you understand what I'm saying?
Yes,
a maestro, sir. A maestro. Oh my God! And so you respect the crowd, you respect the craft, and you respect the call. Okay. Never assume that the crowd is foolish. And if you do that, that's all you'll get called to preach to. It's the foolish. Because that's the only thing you put out was foolish food.
Wow. Jeez.
Preach to the people you wish you had. Till they become what you see in your head. Let me stop. You got another question for me? You know, old people, they get to rambling and talking and going on.
Yeah, this is not that, Bishop. This is gold, and you're helping the next generation. I mean, my only request is that we could do this every Saturday night. You and me, you could just help me.
I just want to see you crawling across the floor being. What we should do is preach it together.
Oh, Bishop, I would be there any way, shape, or form, and I will do anything you say. So,
Wouldn't that be fun?
oh man, I would love that.
We would both have haters, you know, if we did that.
I know
If
we
we
would.
did that, you know, every young guy would hate you, and all the old guys would hate me. I don't know who I would be. Maybe I would be David, and you'd have to be Mephibosheth since you're younger than me.
Yeah, trust me, I relate much more to Mephibosheth, so it's perfect.
Yeah, okay. So you be Mephibosheth, and I'll turn around. I'll get everything ready at the table and set the table up and get all the chandeliers all cleaned up and set the candelabra in the center of the dining room table. And then I'll open up the door and Ziba will walk in and drop you on the floor, and I'll say, Mephibosheth? And you say,
King, is that you?
yeah.
Is that you, sir? Is
Yeah.
that you?
Oh, Mephibosheth, how I long to see you. I see your father, Jonathan, in your eyes. What happened to you?
Sir, how did you even know that I was close by? How did you know who I was, sir?
I heard that there was someone left at the house of David down in Lodabar. Were you in Lodabar, son?
Sir,
Tell
I've
the
been
truth.
there for more years than I can count.
How did you get to Lodabar?
They put me there, sir. It wasn't my own choosing. They put me there.
How does a king's kid end up in the place of no communication? How does somebody who's meant to be royal end up in the rags? Oh, I have a place for you. Would you like to have dinner?
Yes, sir. They told me I was better alone. But I would love to have dinner with you, King.
Then get yourself up off the floor, boy. Laying on the floor like a dog. You may be crippled, but you're still a man. Rise up. Come here, let me help you. Let me show you that there is a seat prepared for crippled men. And show you the mystery that if you sit at the table just right, they'll never see your feet.
That was just the that was the precursor. Bishop, I get so nervous when you start doing that. I'm like, oh, Judah, don't you mess this up. Just leave it alone. Leave it alone. I'll never forget that.
You know what? The terrible thing about this is that you get to see all the comments that the people are making. I don't get to see anything they said. So they're probably making fun of both of us. You know,
no, they're not making fun of you, Bishop. That's not allowed. Not here on Hold the Phone. Can I ask you one more arbitrary, after all of the beauty and the gold and the precious statements and words and phrases that you shared, if I said to Bishop Jakes, you have one more outfit, one more suit. This is the one everyone's going to remember you in. This is the outfit that you will be photographed in. This is how we're going to remember you. What outfit and or suit would that be?
First, I'd have to lose 20 pounds. See, I've been in the house, man. I've been in Corona is the devil.
The devil.
Okay? The devil himself has got me in the house, and I got nothing to do and nowhere to go. I got on the treadmill. I walked around the property, but I don't walk as good as I eat, and so it's a problem. So first, I have to lose 20 pounds. The funny thing about it is now, believe it or not, I actually like casual clothes the best. I think I've been around too many of you all, and they rubbed off on me. But I found out, when I found out how much better those tennis shoes feel than those dress shoes, I converted.
Get some cushion.
Yeah, get some cushion, boy. That helps you with Arthur, and you need them tennis shoes. We need to switch roles and let you all wear the suits and let us wear the tennis shoes.
Woo, man.
Yeah, them shoes are mean after a while, dog.
When we preach our sermon together, you'll be in the casual and I'll be in the suit.
Let's do that. That'll really blow their mind. 3-piece laid down pocket square, the whole thing, and I'm gonna come out, with some. In fact, let me show you my shoes now. Let me show you my shoes.
Oh, this is exciting.
Okay.
Bishop Jakes is going to show us his shoes. Here we go.
Can you see it?
Not yet. We see
you
the
see
carpet. Not yet. No. Oh, yes, we can. You got the Air Forces on.
Yeah, boy.
Air Force One. What?
Don't think I ain't cool.
Oh, my word. Now
Enjoy your life.
On here. Sarah, I love you so much.
Oh, is Sarah on here? Hi, baby. Say hi to Daddy.
Oh, my word.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She's incredible. Bishop, I don't have words. I don't have gifts. I don't have resources to adequately thank you for what tonight was for me. This is a Saturday night. I'll be preaching tomorrow, and I would think about this moment. I'm not trying to be dramatic. I really mean it for the rest of my life, that you would spend this much time, not only with me, but with the next generation. And I pray with all of my heart that ministers, leaders, writers, thinkers, painters, creators, innovators are all listening right now to the wisdom that's pouring out of your soul and your heart. Thank you for the life you've lived. Thank you for the pain you've been through. Thank you for sharing it with all of us. And thank you for the brokenness and the beauty in which you carry it. We love you.
Thank you. I love you too. Take care. I had a good time.
Thanks, Bishop. Okay, we'll talk again soon.
Okay, bye-bye.